96.3 WHUR and HUR Voices, Sirius XM, Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. Your questions or comments toll free at 855-288-4876. Now, Insight.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. Certainly we are continuing to monitor the developments in Paris, France, relative to that terrorist attack. But we are going to switch gears tonight and continue with our discussion, our pre-planned discussion about women, careers, and confidence. What is the foundation of any career woman's success? Now, some say education, others say drive and stamina, but according to a recent survey, confidence is a major determining factor, whether a woman has it or not. My guests tonight are Dr. Nicole Cutts. She's a psychologist and success coach, and Vicki Johnson, best-selling author and woman's coach. Lines are open. Give us a call at 202-319-7810. 202-319-7810. Dr. Cutts and Vicki Johnson, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure.
Okay, so first of all, let's talk a little bit about this survey. It's called the Bain Survey, and it says that one thing holding women back is the feeling that their managers, for example, do not support them. So, for example, after 2 years on the job, only 44% of women employees say their supervisor is supportive of their career aspirations compared to 64% of new workers. My question tonight, because we often hear about the lean-in process now, that we have probably more women managers, CEOs, COOs, CFOs, women in charge. Is confidence really the foundation of that? And for women that are climbing that career ladder, whether your bosses are supporting you or not, is confidence part of that? Dr. Cutts.
Yeah, it's certainly part of it. It's not the whole thing. You can't replace confidence, can't replace competence, right? So you have to be competent. But there are a lot of studies that show that unless women feel that they are supported, or let's say, for example, that they will get the promotion, they're not going to go for it. Whereas a larger percentage of men, even if they don't feel supported or don't necessarily feel that they have a high probability of getting a promotion, will still go for it. So I think that's one of the areas where confidence plays into whether or not women will, as you said, lean in, or go for it.
Vicki, how would you define confidence?
I think confidence starts with courage, really. And courage simply is doing it, even if there's anxiety, doing it afraid, having the assurance that we fail forward, right? So repetition is a part of confidence building. The more you do something, the more competent you become. And so for me, confidence starts with courage, and after repeating whatever those patterns are, to strengthen your capacity and give you that competence, the more you do it, the more your capacity is increased to show up, understanding that you're capable for the job. And I think that's really what confidence speaks to. It speaks to our capacity, and it speaks to our capabilities, which is why competence is so important.
But what does it look like when we're talking about the workplace? Because we often have seen, as more women rise in the career ladder, on the career ladder, I should say, and we've heard even some high-ranking women executives say that men who are confident are seen as so. Mm-hmm. Women who are confident are seen as the B word. Mm-hmm. They are seen as angry or aggressive or those kinds of things. So how can a woman who is climbing that career ladder and has a boatload of confidence deal with the conflicts in the office, particularly with men or others who may see them through those sexist glasses?
Well, it's important. First of all, those perceptions are that's true. That men and women have different perceptions of strong women, and the B word could be bossy, But women have to be aware of that and savvy around that, and they need to use their emotional intelligence to perceive when that they might be intimidating someone. And that doesn't mean to shrink, but if you're trying to influence somebody, you want them to have a response where they come toward you. Right? So a lot of men, there are studies that show that men feel threatened by women in power. If you're trying to influence somebody, you don't want them to feel threatened. So you have to rely on your emotional intelligence to really connect with the individuals that you're dealing with or attempting to lead, so that you can lead them without them feeling threatened. And I don't want anybody who's listening to think that means shrinking or acting meek. It just means having to be more sophisticated about how you connect with people.
But don't men at times feel intimidated by men in power on the job?
Yes.
So what's the difference?
Well, for some reason, the studies show that, and I can't remember I can't cite the specific study, but they showed that men were more likely to try to hold women back who were trying to rise or get a promotion. For some reason, probably because of gender role stereotypes, they're more threatened by a woman who's breaking out of the gender role stereotype that they're projecting on her.
202-319-7810. 202-319-7810. We're talking about career women and confidence. Where does it come from? How do you manage it? And what happens if you don't have it? I want to go back, Vicki, to this study, because one of the things that I find really kind of interesting is it also talks about women who are perhaps thought that they lacked talent, that they weren't cut out for a role of top management, or that perhaps that they really didn't want it. For those women who perhaps do not have the confidence, even though they are qualified, even though they have the brains, but there is that there's something missing, and perhaps that confidence is missing. Can that make the difference between, stepping up on the ladder or staying where they are?
It can, and something that comes to mind as you are creating context is that confidence is not built in isolation, right? So when women are looking to go up in their careers and, to climb in their professional life, it's important to surround yourself with mentors. That's important depending on your industry, professional organizations where they provide within those organizations mentor-mentee relationships, other networking and skill building opportunities. So it's important to not isolate if you feel you are in a space where you lack confidence, but to seek out women who are great in the space that you aspire to. So, technology has changed the game completely.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning that you don't necessarily have to have a personal relationship with a woman that you admire to be inspired by her. You can read a book, you can follow her on social media, Periscope, we have TED Talks, but there are so many resources now. So that also means that a part of confidence is taking personal responsibility for your vision, for your passion, for your pursuit. I find that when you are in a position and or a career that is in alignment with what you really desire to do in your heart, there is a fire that is in you that will kind of push you through those moments where you're unsure, where you're uncertain. And so it is important to have vision for your career and not be where your parents think you should be, or, in a career where you're making a lot of money, but you're not necessarily happy or passionate about it. Mm-hmm. So all of those things have to be in alignment. And when they are in alignment, you show up strong. And so, again, confidence is not built in isolation. And a lot of times when we are uncertain, we do withdraw, we do shrink. So it's important to have conversations like this and then seek out the things that speak to your heart and keep your passion ignited.
202-319-7810, 202-319-7810, talking about career women and confidence. Something kind of struck me there, because when you're talking about surrounding yourself with, perhaps mentors or associates that are confident. But what if it's just not in you? Do you, as I've heard some people say, fake it until you make it? When you're talking about how you present yourself as you're taking those first steps on your career ladder, or perhaps when you are moving through your educational career in college. Young girls, for example, traditionally have not been raised to be confident. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about that now in 2015, and some could argue that there still isn't enough discussion and definitely not enough honing of confidence and development of confidence in young girls. So again, what if you don't have it? How do you develop it? You talk about, well, you may have the fire. Maybe it's just embers. It could just be a match. It may not, it may not be the full-blown bonfire, but you still want it. But some people aren't built that way.
Well, I think we need to go back to what Dr. Johnson said about it's not about fake it till you make it all the time. It's about taking the risk and doing it anyway. So sometimes what we do as women is we wait until we feel confident. I don't know if it's as much as fake it until you make it as act as if. Go ahead and embody that feeling. You can find that somewhere in your body. And I want to just quickly talk about one tip on how to develop it. I think that you have to start with the body. That's where emotional intelligence is. That's where you get in touch with yourself and how you feel and what you're aware of. And you can change that. You can build those bravery muscles actually in your muscles. You can do things to, let's say, for example, you said fake it till you make it. When you're confident, you stand a certain way. You breathe a certain way. So repeat that, replicate that in a situation where you don't feel confident. And if it is just a match or a little ember, you get to blow on that ember and it grows as you practice in little steps and it will grow.
How do you deal with these issues when you have women that perhaps have low self-esteem issues and yet they are still moving through their careers? They're educated, and again, they are certainly qualified, but they may struggle with low self-esteem. And I think that's one of the things that I was kind of talking about. You hear them say, never let them see you sweat, or you go into the boardroom because you have that great big presentation, and when it's over and you get the standing ovation, I would imagine confident women, they walk out of the boardroom and they're still strutting head high. But those that don't embody it, don't have it, they step out of the boardroom and the first thing they do is lean up against the door and go, "Whoof," So how do you get those that say, "Whoo," to walk down the hallway after that board meeting and keep their heads high because I got this,
Well, I think that, I think even confident women have that experience, and that is why we have to keep the lines of communication open in the context of, women supporting women. It is important for women who have made it and are successful to share their stories. I think, again, when you're going through it, when you're growing through it, it feels like you're the only one in that space. But I have found working with women that as I share my story and a piece of my story resonates with them, and I talk about how I felt in certain moments, and inevitably someone will say, "Wow, I thought I was the only one." And when you realize you're not the only one, there's power in that. There's power in transparency. There's power in honesty. And again, that is where the support of other women is so powerful. And I keep repeating that because there's power in that. There's power in relationship. There's power in women supporting women, because I'm not my sister's keeper. I am my sister. And we attract what we are reflecting.
Need to take a break. When we come back, we continue the conversation about women, careers, and confidence. Lines are open at 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. We'll be back in just a moment.
Here's today.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141. We continue our conversation about career women and confidence with my guest, Dr. Nicole Cutts and Vicki Johnson. Vicki, you mentioned earlier about your story. You've been on the show before. You had a lot of stories, but so I mean, I joke with you. I do joke with you. You know, I always tease you, but certainly I have heard you speak, and you are an inspiration for a lot of women, and humble too, I must say. So, talk to me about your one of your stories and your quiet confidence.
Well, for me, I can directly pinpoint that to growing up in sports and playing team sports, and you know, I think it's important for women to understand that to model confidence, you don't have to be masculine. There is a lot of strength in our femininity. And when we stay in that space, I think that is where our power truly, truly lies. And so playing basketball and, you know, being a Lady Bison, you know, here at Howard University, that really built within me a resilience, if you will, to show up for the game no matter what else was going on in my life. I learned to show up no matter what. And that attitude, mindset really has translated into my life. And so hurting women hurt women. But healed women heal women. So now I have raised my daughter the same way. You know, when she made a commitment, it was either going to be music or it was going to be sports. And whatever you decide, you're going to be consistent, you're going to be committed, and you're going to follow it through to the end, even if you don't want to anymore.
But have you always been confident, or was there an aha moment, a time in your life, at any point in your life, where you perhaps woke up and said, who I am at this point is not who I was yesterday?
Totally. And that is the opportunity that women have when they are exploring confidence. Is I want to go back to what Dr. Nicole said when you talked about your body. I was like, oh yes, now it's getting really good here, because if we pay attention to our bodies communicate to us. Like if you go into a space and you're like, your body is telling you this is not the place you're supposed to be. Hence, when you go into a place, again, and you're walking in that confidence, there is a calm, there is a peace, there is a flow, there's an inner congruence, if you will, that says, I am where I'm supposed to be. And that is the challenge as women pursue confidence, is where do you have total alignment? Mind, body, spirit, alignment. And when you have that, confidence exudes from you. I think women experience lack of confidence when they are out of place. When they are out of place and when they are out of purpose and when they're not in alignment. And Dr. Nicole and I were talking about this earlier with why they're here. That's important.
But you say out of place. What does that mean?
Meaning doing things that you don't really want to do. Being in places you don't really belong, and you know that, but you stay because you think you're supposed to.
Where your heart's, when your heart's not there.
Yeah, but certainly, but isn't that really part of, you know, short of hitting the lotto, you got to go to work, and you need to maintain the job, the career path, and there are times when you are in spaces and places where you feel you do not belong, or that you belong, but you have people telling you that you do not belong.
Well, if you have to be someplace and you've made a choice to be there, then you're there for the moment, for the time. And you still need to inhabit that space and show up and fulfill your purpose in that space. Now, if you've really decided, like let's say it's a job, and you've said this job is not where I want to be, it's killing my soul, well, you have to be building a bridge to the next place while you do that. But you have to find some purpose and some meaning in where you are, or it's going to be like death.
Talk to me about some tips, Dr. Cutts.
Okay, so when we talk about sharing our stories, one of the things I do and that I share with my success coaching clients is for women to see their lives as a heroine's quest, to see themselves as the hero, heroine of their own stories. And in that context, the trials and tribulations that we face are on the way to getting the ultimate boon, are on the way to succeeding in the quest, like getting the Holy Grail. And also what Dr. Johnson said about feminine leadership. The ideal feminine leadership to me means that once you get the boon, you take it and you share it with your people. You bring it back. You share it. It's not that selfish, I just want to be great and I'm going to go. So one tip is to see your life and yourself as a heroine of your own story, so that you see the trials and tribulations that you face as like slaying dragons, you know, or anything like that. Also, this idea of perfectionism, we have to put an end to that. That is not how you build self-esteem. Perfectionism will drag your self-esteem down. What I recommend people do if they're trying to build their self-esteem is to pay attention to what good things they do for themselves and for others in a day. I direct people to write down 3 good things you've done in a day, whether it's get up and make yourself a good breakfast, you went to work, you went to the gym, you went for a good walk, because that's writing down the evidence of self-love, which I think is another definition of self-confidence, is self-love. So write down 3 things that you do each day to pay attention to what it is you do, and 5 things for which you're grateful. You know, so those are some tips. I know Dr. Johnson probably has
and I wanted to piggyback on something, because I don't believe I got a full answer to my question. What was that aha moment for you?
One aha moment for me in different contexts was that I'm where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be.
What happened?
What happened is that in that situation, I came out victorious, you know. For example,
I'm going to tell me what happened.
I am getting ready to tell you. I think comparison really kills confidence. And when I was in my marriage prior to my divorce, you know, I thought everybody else had a wonderful marriage. So it was really killing my confidence to go home to misery. While assuming that everybody else around me in their married lives were happy, right? But when I put on those racehorse blinders and decided, well, it doesn't matter what their story is, I am writing my own story. And when I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, when staying the same was more painful than the risk of changing, then that's when I woke up. Like, what's the worst that can happen if I step out into the unknown? And so I'm willing to step out into that space rather than staying here where I am confident that I am miserable. Right?
New meaning.
So the aha moment was, you know, my grandmother used to say, nothing beats a failure but a try, right? So I took a leap. And when I took that leap, I landed softly. I landed softly in a new space. And that lesson, that trial, that challenge, if you will, when I came out of it, to look back and to be able to share the story that, look, I took this leap and I lived, right? I lived to tell about it. You can do the same thing. So that's just, you know, one of my many aha moments.
But but let me say that's a really big aha moment, because even though that is your story, I think that is such a fine example, because we see so much about perfect relationships on social media. We see couples flying off to the beaches and walking through the woods, and we may look at that and we may say, gosh, they're doing it. Why can't I? Or why am I miserable? And I just think that is such a great example.
And let me just add the caveat is that I was in a pretty high profile marriage too. So you know, a lot of people knew who we were, and in most situations people didn't even know my name. They referred to me as his wife, right? And so there was an identity thing going on, there was isolation going on, and so I hope that a sister who is listening, you know, whether it's in your marriage or your career or whatever, is that you be willing to risk having nothing for a moment, right? Because there is that little segue to something better, but that is worth the try. It is worth the try to create the life that you see in your mind, in your reality.
Dr. Coates, you were going to say something.
I was going to say something that I just did a little post on that whole Facebook thing and the social media, and I participate in it. I have a good time on it. I don't post when I'm feeling like I don't want to get out of bed. Okay, I'm going to say, I'm going to post when I got up at 6 and did my writing. I'm going to post my vacations. I'm not going to post like, you know what, I am scared to make this call right now. And that's the other thing I think that's important. We have to be, in sharing our stories, we have to be honest. There's not these confident women and women with no confidence. It's a continuum.
Yeah.
I don't always feel confident. I think I am a confident woman. I took that little test they had online for that new book, Breaking the Confidence Code, and it said you're very confident. That's great. I got a little star. That's good. But I don't always feel confident. And that's when sometimes, like Vicki said, you have to act as if. You have to take the risk. You have to put yourself out there anyway. But I've done a lot of presentations where I get out and go, whew, I'm glad that's over. But I showed up and I did it anyway.
But and I've got to allow this to be the final point, and I'll end it with Vicki here. Do you sometimes have to recreate yourself, a self that did not exist before? And some would say, oh gosh, that's not really who you are. Do you have to, or can it be really who you are if you recreate your more confident self?
I think recreating ourselves in the context of your question is really us remembering who we are. I think life happens. We put on layers that strip away our authenticity, and you call it recreating. I call it remembering. So when you're in a space where you're overwhelmed, the thing is not to try to pull on confidence to figure out, what do I do? When you're overwhelmed, the question is, what do I need to let go of? And as you are releasing those layers, you're getting back to the core of who you are, in the deepest part of yourself.
I think that's a great way to end this conversation. I want to thank both of you for coming in and sharing with us, and particularly on this very difficult day that we're not only seeing here in Paris, but I'm sure that we all here in the United States are certainly praying for Paris. So again, ladies, thank you so much, and please have a wonderful weekend. That is the Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141 for this Friday, November 13th. For News Director Renee Nash, reporters Taylor Thomas, Troy Johnson, Millette Green, Vermonte Bryant, producer Candace Atkins, and engineer Bobby Adams, I'm Harold Fisher. You can reach me at hfisher@whur.com, on Facebook at Harold T. Fisher, or Twitter at hfisher WHUR. Now, stay tuned for The Connection with Lorna Newton. Good night, and have a good weekend.
The Howard University Radio Network is